友人の富江が死んだ。
富江のことは先生も残念だ。警察によると犯人はまだ捕まっていない。この界隈に潜んでいる可能性も捨てきれないそうだ。女子は帰りなどできるだけ一人にならないように気をつけて。富江の死は悲しいが現実なんだ。いくら嘆いても富江は帰ってくるわけではない。
すみません、遅れて。富江。
Welcome to the Wunderkammer, the place where you will find all the needed objects in order to discover yourself. But be careful, this cabinet of curiosities will uncover things you never wanted to see unveiled. This room will open the abyss of darkness for you. You will see how this darkness will lead you to the light you were searching for all this time. Wunderkammer is excited to be your guide to that light. So as you know, the story starts with Tommy's funeral. Everybody thinks that Tommy is dead, and we're introduced to the fact that Tommy's parts of her body are scattered everywhere, and it was chopped to bits. But while Tommy's class in school are discussing her death, she appears on the door of the classroom, leaving everyone in shock. Because everybody is really confused, one of the teachers, Mr. Takagi, calls her into his office where they reveal that they slept together, and Tommy drives him insane. And it's not only him. Everyone in Tommy's class start to lose their minds over what happened, including her best friend, Reiko, and her boyfriend Yamamoto. Later, we find out how she actually died, and guess what? The whole class cut her into 42 pieces because they thought that she died when she fell off a cliff during an argument. And they were wrong. They were cutting her while she was still alive. So because they thought of something that no one would think, which is to kill a teenager, they decided to hide parts of Tommy's body in different places, far away from each other in order for the police not to find them. After this flashback, we are taken back to the same day as Tommy appeared. Yamamoto and Reiko decide to tell the police everything about how and when Tommy was killed, and they have a fight between the classmates. At that moment, Tommy appears again, but all she seems to care about is that Reiko seems awfully close with Yamamoto. She doesn't even mention anything about the day when she was murdered. She behaves as if nothing happened. Reiko gets scared of Tommy, just like everybody else, and runs away, while Yamamoto is the second man who loses his mind.
あれから3日後、幸運にも私の一家は海の見える町へ引っ越した。聞くところによると、1年 B 組は退学者が続出。半ば壊滅状態にあるという。富江がどうなったかはわからない。
Later, the teacher Takagi is diagnosed as mentally ill because doctors assume that he's the one who killed Tommy. Takagi would say that he saw the ghost of Tommy, which makes me question, is Tommy even real to begin with? And for the rest of the manga. Moving on, Takagi claims that Tommy was never a ghost actually, that she was never a normal human being to begin with. And he's seen here and there serving Tommy for the rest of the manga. Tommy goes to the hospital to see Yukiko, which I assume is Reiko's friend, because for some reason Tommy introduces herself as Reiko Mizutani. You'll notice that Tommy is a pathological liar. She lies in order to be acceptable so she can get whatever she needs. Yukiko is in the hospital because she is in need of a kidney transplant, and Tomie visits her in order to tell her not to be close with Tadashi. Tadashi is Yukiko's close friend whom she also likes. You will also notice that Tomie lies all the time in order to control the person in whom she has taken interest. She also makes whole stories in order to isolate the person from their close friends and families. And she succeeds because she manipulates people by using their greatest unconscious weaknesses and insecurities. Tomie does the same thing with Tadashi and Yukiko. Tomie severs the emotional bond between both of them. And so Yukiko breaks contact. Tadashi gets confused from all of this as he asks Tomie about it. He also thinks that her name is Reiko. And of course, Tomie lies again in order to be in denial herself about what she did, and Tadashi notices. Tadashi reveals that he feels this abnormal urge to kill her since the day she and him met. He is really confused because he saw the article of Tomie's death in a newspaper from 2 years ago, but he continues to follow her. He gets obsessed because of morbid curiosity and emotional abuse, I would say. After Tadashi and Tomie's last conversation, he follows her and she appears right in front of his face, telling him that her conflict with him is a joke and then she loves him, just like that. At that moment, Tadashi kills her and he gets arrested by the police. When they ask him why he killed her, he says that he doesn't know, that it was an urge that consumed him, an urge to dismantle her. I understood where this urge comes from, so I'm going to offer my perspective. The doctors notice that Tomie's blood matches Yukiko's, and that means that Tomie can donate one kidney. But in order to do that, they needed consent from Tomie's family. This is where Takagi appears again randomly, and he approved. Of course. The day after Yukiko's operation, her stomach grows a lot and she immediately gets into an operation. The doctors notice that a whole skull is growing out of the implanted kidney. And exactly as everybody would assume, Tomie's head is inside. So from what we can read from the manga, we can see that Tomie repeats the same cycle. She makes a man fall in love with her and then he ends up killing her and cutting her into pieces. As I recall, that's how she originally died. This leads me to the first question: is Tomie even real? I mean, I know that there's a lot of proof that says that Tomie is real, but I can't help but get this feeling that she isn't. It's like a strange feeling, because a lot of victims actually thought that all of what happened with Tomie was a nightmare, and even the biology behind how her limbs grow out of every part of her body is explained in the 3rd chapter, Basement. The operation was a success at first. Days later, however, the kidney became a monster within the patient's own body. Like buds from a bulb, the kidney sprouted limbs and a head, and now look at what we have. There's your abnormal kidney. And this is the abnormally developed head that penetrated the stomach. To remove it from the patient's body, we had to sever the head at the neck. But look at it! Within hours it began regenerating from where it was cut. It's absolutely unbelievable. I think that the reason why she doesn't feel real is because the victims go through so much trauma that their brain disassociates in the moment of that trauma. And it's so well done through the characters that they make us feel like all of the nightmares are happening in their head. I got the impression that she was just a post-traumatic memory in the 1st chapter when Yamamoto and Takagi completely lost their minds. But it would be actually insane if only the victims could see her and it turns out that everything is happening in their heads. That would be an insane plot twist. But if she is real, then the right question is, what does Tomie want with all of those men? And why do they end up killing her and slicing her into pieces all the time, again and again? So thinking about it my way made so much sense to me, and this is my perspective. So killing is the last desperate attempt in order to gain control over reality. And what I mean by that is, when you're absolutely powerless and you have nothing left to do in order to get your power back in a certain situation, It's a human instinct to kill in order to survive. For the human being, survival means power. And so, for the human being, powerlessness means death. This can especially occur in abusive circumstances where the abused one goes to the extent of powerlessness, where there is nothing more to do than desperately take the other person's life in order to survive. So you can imagine to what degree the human being needs to go in order to rely on that last resort. Killing is a survival tactic just like everything else, and it's time for us to understand that instead of looking at it through the lens of right and wrong. So how can this be applied to this situation? So Tomie has many dysfunctional patterns where she controls the people she is with in order to gain any intimacy whatsoever. And this control goes to such an extent that she basically leaves the other person completely powerless. And at this moment, the last resort kicks in, the one that I'm talking about. In this scenario between Tadashi and Tomie, you can see that Tomie abuses him by trying to control him and basically treats him as her puppet. She isolates him from other people, she lies about him, she doesn't involve nor perceive his concept of his own self whatsoever, and so she doesn't even see him as a being in this connection. She's basically living in a world where she only exists and no one else. This is a dysfunctional pattern that happens between so many people every single day, and I would say that is the most dangerous one. And there is nothing worse to experience than not being able to exist in someone else's reality. And when I'm saying that, I would suggest that this is the most common reason of why people kill, because the powerlessness from not being able to coexist with somebody reinforces that drive. What Tomie does is she uses her looks in order to find somebody who will protect her from herself. She has a personality disorder to the degree where parts of her use people as pawns in order to kill each other because they can't coexist with one another. And in most circumstances, she uses men in order to kill parts of herself. And it's really funny how every part of her sees itself as the only real one, as if the other parts are not supposed to exist and they're not real. And this just shows to what degree we reject our own subpersonalities. What she basically wants to achieve is the oneness that we're born with. She tries to bypass the process of feeling grief and identifying and integrating all parts of herself, and she's trying to jump straight into her own state of oneness. And you will see that no matter how hard she tries, that's not possible. So is Tomie doing all of this from the place of revenge and being betrayed? Absolutely yes, because I would do the same thing. I would just show up in order to fuck up everybody's lives after being sliced up and murdered like that. And you will see that basically the same situation repeats over and over again after her original death. She controls and then she gets killed and sliced. This leads me to another question. So was the first death of Tomie at the beginning of the manga the original one? Or was this just another cycle of her dying again and again and again? And we may never know. Tomie feels so much shame that she physically fragments herself, and she runs away from that shame by making her victims either be the escape for her parts, or she makes her victims kill every other part of her that arises. She's looking for the perfect man to save her from this unbearable fragmentation that is happening to her, and she wants somebody who will be able to help her get rid of her own parts and multiple personalities. But the thing is, again and again, she can't, because they are a part of her consciousness, and we all know that we cannot destroy parts of our consciousness no matter how much we try. And we all know that we can't run away from the personalities within ourselves no matter how many people save us from ourselves. No one can. No one can save us from ourselves. Not even our lovers. Tomie uses her appearance in order to meet her need of connection and make sure that she's always special. This woman is so deprived that she would do anything in order to control the people around her, because she fears that if she doesn't do that, everybody will abandon her. She represses her emotions to the degree where they form as other Tomies. The other parts of her consciousness don't want to be repressed, and they always express themselves by physically getting out of her body. They do this in order to be able to express their desires, needs, and feelings in a way where you can't repress them. As an example, every time Tomie is triggered and a part of her gets out, she is literally forced not to repress that certain part that didn't get out. If somebody is standing right in front of you and letting you know about their own needs, desires, and wants, you wouldn't be able to just walk away or repress them or ignore them, right? But she doesn't see this. Instead of acknowledging the fact that she is not okay and she is deprived to the degree where she's hurting herself and other people, she tries to find a way to completely destroy and remove parts of herself from existence because in her mind she just wants peace. She wants to feel peace and she wants to feel love. She has many narcissistic characteristics where she gaslights, manipulates, and does everything in order to control the people with whom she wants any kind of connection. That's the only way she knows that she will be safe and that the connection will not hurt her. And in that way, she feels like everything is guaranteed. She hides her fears and insecurities with confidence, which is one of the most common characteristics of narcissists, and she's only concerned with how to meet her own needs without taking anyone else as a part of herself. But I don't know if you have noticed, her superego became so immense and fragile that it rules her mind. Every time she starts separating from herself, Tomie is triggered because her ego is challenged. You can especially see that in the chapter Photo, where Mikiko calls her sick and twisted. The moment she realizes that her own image of being a good person is threatened, she loses control and her overwhelming shame and superego take over, and that's basically how she starts to separate physically. She loses her mind because that shame itself is what she wants to escape from, and the parts that get out of her body are just the consequence of unsuccessful repression. And remember, those parts are doing that in order to protect her by showing her the truth. If you want to know more about the superego, I suggest watching my video about Andrew Tate and my perspective of him. I explain a lot about the id, ego, and superego from Freud's psychology. Deep inside, Tomie knows that she will always feel deprived and she will never be able to fill her own emptiness, no matter how many men love her. She says that she tests out men in order to see how far they would go for her, but deep inside she knows that she's lying. She wants to be special to somebody and she wants to feel as a genuine person who matters to somebody. The reason why she goes to that extreme where she makes men put her on a pedestal is because that's the only way in which she knows unconsciously how to meet that need, and in that way she successfully escapes from her worst enemy, which is her shame. Tomie is a monster who would do anything in order not to show that she is one. She's a monster because she denies that she is one. If she could only see that the solution is right in front of her eyes, by accepting the parts of her which can't stop getting out of her and integrating them back. The reason why she is a monster isn't because she has demonic looking parts getting out of her body. She's a monster because she doesn't want us to see the monster inside of her. The more you're running away from the monster inside you, and the more you strive to look like a good person, the more monstrous you become. Here's a fact right at ya. We're all Tomie. We're all going through the same cognitive dissonance, just like Tomie, every single day. And it's only a matter of time until the truth forces us to reconnect with our own subpersonalities once again.
Did you like the visit in the Wunderkammer? If you did, please like, subscribe, and share this content if you see it as helpful. Did you also notice the artworks in this video? They're not put accidentally. If you want to understand my philosophical reasons of why I put them in the video, you can become a crow on Patreon. In that tier, I'm posting the paintings and the contacts they have in the video. You can also see them like Easter eggs. But only crows can see through the messages, because they are messengers themselves.
You can also become a raven. In that tier, you can ask me for answers and guidance about anything you're curious about, and you're going to receive a high quality answer.
I also have playlists on Spotify under my name, Katerina Lunas, if you need something to trigger and enhance your emotional experience. Can you hear the footsteps? They're the footsteps of illusion. It's coming. But what are you going to do about it? Accept it or do something about it?